Let's go ahead and move into discussing the data collected and the data requirements for end of year one. The file types required for end of year one all use replacement processing, where any record in the CalPADS ODS with the same operational keys are replaced on upload. The one exception is the staff demographic file, which uses the more flex-effective date processing method. Student enrollment or SENR records must be updated in end of year one and should be updated prior to uploading work-based learning records. CalPADS will pull data on the state seal of biliteracy, golden state seal, and AG completion from the SENR record. The staff demographic or SDEM record is used to submit demographic data about your credentialed staff members who were actively employed at any time during the current academic year. An update of the SDEM file is typically submitted to include those teachers of record who were not active during the Fall 2 reporting period. The course completion or CRSC file is used to submit course completion data, including state course codes and course attributes for all departmentalized courses that students complete during the academic year. The student course section completion or SC file format is used to submit student course section data, including credits, grades, Carnegie Units, CTE, and AG requirements for departmentalized course sections that students complete during the academic year and for which they received a grade. The Student Career Technical Education or SCTE file format is used to submit career technical education information about a student. Specifically, students are identified as CTE pathway completers if they completed a CTE pathway within the current academic year. The high-quality CTE indicator is used to designate high-quality CTE courses only. The staff teaching these courses are credentialed to teach career technical education. And finally, the work-based learning or WBLR file is used to submit work-based learning data that will provide additional opportunities for students to demonstrate their preparedness for college and career through the CCI on the California School Dashboard. So we have a couple of reminders for you while we are on this slide. Course completion for end of year one is not compared to course enrollments from Fall 2. So it is considered independently of those course enrollments in Fall 2. Course completion is only required for departmentalized courses in grades 9 through 12 and optional in grades 7 and 8. CTE completers are determined using the SCTE file or seeds submitted in course section completion or CRSC records are checked to make sure a corresponding staff demographic record exists in CalPADS unless the seed is all 9s. And then finally, do not submit the staff assignment file in end of year. Staff assignment data is not required for end of year, and submitting a file may wipe out previously submitted data. So do not submit a staff assignment file. And with the records submitted in end of year one and the information that is pulled from those records, we can glean some information about the staff involved in the end of year one data submission. And we've highlighted 5 departments or 5 groups of staff that are relevant in end of year one. They are your school site staff, your program staff, your CTE staff, site administrators, and student system support staff. All right. The staff demographics, course section completion, student course section completion, student career technical education, and work-based learning files are all required for end of year one. In end of year one, you will want to make sure that your student enrollment or SENR records and your staff demographics or SDEM records are up to date in CalPADS before submitting any of the other file types. SENR records will need to be updated to reflect student data at the end of the school year. Staff demographic records will need to be updated so that all teachers instructing students are reported during the academic year. If you make it a practice to keep SDEM records at your LEA current in CalPADS on an ongoing basis throughout the school year, this will be a quick step. Once the staff demographic submission is complete, the course section completion records should be submitted and posted. The seed from the staff demographic record ties the teacher to the course section. After the courses have been posted in CalPads, the student course section completion file can be submitted and posted. The SCSC records are tied to individual courses by a shared course section ID and tied to students via the SSID from the student enrollment record. The SCTE file, or Student Career Technical Education file, is submitted to identify completers of specific CTE pathways. The course pathway code ties the SCTE record to the course section completion record in order to validate that CTE students receive the correct pathway curriculum. And finally, the work-based learning file may be submitted independently of the other EOY file types. However, an enrollment record or an SENR record at the School of Attendance during the academic year must exist for the student in order to report a work-based learning record. These tables identify which school and grade levels will be expected or required to report which end of year one files. The legend on the bottom right-hand side of the slide here tells us what is indicated by either Y, N, or P, which are the options for each of the cells here. Y indicates that the file type is required, that schools are expected to submit data and will receive validation errors if data is not submitted. And N indicates that the data is not required and schools should not submit the data. And a P indicates that the data is permitted, that schools are permitted but not expected to submit these file types. And we can see that traditional schools require all of the end of year one file types. Traditional schools or non-education option schools require the CRSC and SCSC, the staff demographics, the CTE, and the work-based learning file. You can then see that district level programs, independent study and home and hospital programs have a P listed here. So every file type in end of year one, the CRSC, SCSC, staff demographics, CTE, and work-based learning records are all permitted but not expected from district level programs. And then we can see that for non-public school groups or NPS schools, we have a no in all of the file types. So these schools should not submit course section completion, student course section completion, staff demographics, CTE, or work-based learning files. So those are the school types. If we focus on the grade levels, we can see that LEAs are not to submit data in any of these file types for infants, toddlers, preschool students, and kindergarten through 6th grade students in self-contained classrooms. And we can see that for grades 9 through 12, all of the file types are required. For grades 7 and 8, these file types are permitted but not required. And this is particularly for departmentalized courses in grades 7 and 8. Let's go ahead and move on to some reminders here. This slide contains important reporting reminders. Based on the last slide, we can see that we should not or do not report end of year one data for grades kindergarten through 8 in self-contained classes. Grades 7 and 8 in departmentalized courses can but are not required to be reported. If you do not report departmentalized courses in grades 7 and 8, you may receive a Cert 99, no student course section data for a primarily enrolled student. You should ignore this error if you opted not to report. You must report end of year one data for grades 9 through 12 in departmentalized courses. This includes the staff demographics, course section completion, student course section completion, and work-based learning records. This also includes the student career technical education record if your LEA has a CTE pathway completer in grades 9 through 12. All right, with the EOY 1 overview out of the way, let's move into discussing course section and student course section completion data. LEAs must submit information on courses that students have completed during the year in course section completion and student course section completion records. Most course completion data is only required for students in departmentalized classroom settings in grades 9 through 12 attending traditional schools. Grades, credits attempted, and credits earned are all required for grade levels 9 through 12. Only grades are required for grade levels 7 and 8. You must submit student course completion data for all official grading periods for the entirety of the school year. By submitting course completion data for students in departmentalized courses in grades 7 through 12, LEAs identify CTE participants. All right, let's focus in on the course section completion CRSC file type. This slide contains key fields or attributes in CRSC records. There are 4 key attributes to be mindful of when populating data and reviewing EOY 1 reports in CalPads, and they are course content, college courses, high-quality CTE courses, and CTE attributes. With regards to course content, state course codes identify CTE course completions, college course completions, and leadership or military science course completion. With regards to college courses, there are a subset of college courses that are identified through specific state course codes which designate college level. College level courses can also be identified based on the non-standard instructional level of either 23, indicating college credit only, or 24, indicating dual enrollment. If you are reporting a college credit CTE course, you would populate the state course code for the appropriate CTE course and populate the non-standard instructional level as either 23 or 24 to indicate college level. All right, with regards to high quality CTE courses, these are courses developed with CTE pathway standards. CTE pathway standards are designed to develop high quality curriculum and instruction to help ensure that students are career and college ready. The standards offer clear guidelines for course content development and expectations for student achievement. These standards are not exclusive to a career pathway, CTE program of study, a particular discipline, or a level of education. High-quality CTE courses must be taught by a credentialed CTE teacher. And finally, with regards to CTE attributes, students reported to a CTE capstone course who are pathway completers will be identified as a completer in your 4-year adjusted cohort graduation rate, or ACGR, and will be included in calculations for the college and career indicator on the California School Dashboard. All right, let's dig a bit deeper into those college courses. LEAs should report college courses that students completed with a C- or better, or passing, as it is one of the factors used in determining whether students are prepared for college and career on the California School Dashboard. LEAs should indicate in the course section record that courses are college level by using the appropriate CalPad state course code, and that is done in the field highlighted in blue here. Or for college credit CTE courses, use the course instructional level code, that's the field highlighted in yellow, and populate this field with either code 23, indicating college credit only, or code 24, indicating dual enrollment or dual credit. You should only report a course as dual enrollment or college credit only if the student earns college credit upon completion. The student may earn high school credit in addition, but must also earn college credit. All right, and if LEAs do not have the SEIDs and staff information for college teachers, you should submit a generic seed of all 9s as the seed for the teacher in the course section completion record. Data submitted in the course section completion and student course section completion files as part of the end of year 1 submission are used to identify whether students in the 4-year ACGR are prepared for college and career as measured on the California School Dashboard. The CCI, or the College and Career Indicator, on the California School Dashboard looks at state course codes in the 9,000 series or range, indicating college level courses. It also looks at courses in the 7,000 to 8,999 series or range, indicating CTE courses. The CCI looks in particular at CTE courses using non-standard instructional level codes of either 23 or 24, as this indicates that a course is both CTE and college level or college credit. All right, let's move into discussing AP or IB courses. LEAs should use designated state course code values for Advanced Placement, or IB, or International Baccalaureate, or IB courses. And those state course codes are again submitted in the field highlighted in purple on this slide. AP courses should have the appropriate state course code selected and aligned with a specific content area. IB courses must be reported with the appropriate state course code unless they are middle school IB courses. For middle school IB courses, use the course instructional level code to indicate IB. Let's look now at how course section completion records appear for courses which are both AP or IB and CTE. Course completion data determines the LEA's CTE participant counts using the state course codes, again in the 7000 and 8000 series. All students completing CTE courses will be counted as CTE participants for Federal Perkins reporting purposes. LEAs do not have to submit any additional data for CTE participant counts. CTE courses require the following fields to be populated. First is the CRS state course code. And again, course codes in the 7000 to 8999 series are CTE courses. We then have the CRS CTE post-secondary articulated course indicator. This is used to collect information on whether or not a CTE course has been articulated with a post-secondary institution. We then have the CTE course provider code, which indicates whether a given CTE course is provided by a regional occupation center or program or provided by the district. And the high quality CTE course indicator, which indicates whether the course section is being taught by a CTE credentialed teacher. Now let's talk about the field highlighted in blue on the left-hand side of the slide. Previously, LEAs were forced to choose between populating either the CTE state course code or the AP or IB course code in course section completion records. In current times, LEAs are able to identify a course as both CTE and AP or IB. The AP-IB course code cross-reference field is what allows this. It allows the LEA to populate the state course code field with the CTE course code while providing a cross-reference code to an AP or IB course. The AP or IB cross-reference code is a 4-digit code which references AP or IB courses that an LEA has mapped to a CTE state course code because the course is part of a CTE pathway. All right, let's move into discussing the student course section completion record. This slide contains key fields or attributes in student course section completion records. And there are 4 key attributes to be mindful of when populating these records and reviewing the associated end of year 1 aggregate reports in CalPads. And those key fields or key attributes are grades, credits, Carnegie Units, and CSU Admissions Requirements codes. With regards to grades, these should be populated with the final grade that a student received after completing a specific course section and are only required for departmentalized courses for students in grades 7 through 12. LEAs should not submit progress report grades, but only grades earned when credits are awarded. Credits are required for grades 9 through 12. LEAs may submit course completion data either after the completion of an official grading period in which credits are awarded, or at the end of the year when students have completed all courses for the school year. In addition to credits earned, student progress and achievement will be derived from the student course section completion record via the Carnegie Unit. The Carnegie Unit is granted to a student completing approximately 120 hours of class in one subject over the course of 1 year. A total of 120 hours in one subject, and this is meeting 4 or 5 times a week for 40 to 60 minutes for 36 to 40 weeks each year. This earns the student 1 Carnegie unit of high school credit. 2 semester-long courses equal 1 year-long course. 1 year-long course constitutes 1 Carnegie unit. Semester courses constitute 1/2 of a Carnegie unit. Most school districts award 10 local units for each Carnegie unit and 5 local units for a semester course. So that is Carnegie units. UC or CSU Admissions Requirements Code represents the University of California or California State University college admission course requirements that a high school course has been determined to meet. Possible codes describe subject areas such as history or social science, English or mathematics, laboratory science, and visual or performing arts. This is not a required field, but should be populated for courses that have been approved by a UC or CSU institution. This field is only applicable for departmentalized courses in grades 7 through 12. Right. Include all student course section records for students enrolled at any time during the academic year who completed a course and received a grade. The following fields are required in the student course section completion record, and they are the fields highlighted on this slide. First is the academic term code. This represents an academic term. An academic term is the period of time into which an educational institution divides the academic year for the purposes of instruction. We then have the student credits attempted. This is a count of the credits attempted for a specific course section in grades 9 through 12. And the student credits earned, which is a count of the credits earned after a student completes a specific course section in grades 9 through 12. The student course final grade is the final grade that a student received after completing a specific course section, and this is required for grades 7 through 12. The marking period code here represents the name or description of the period within a course session in which a course mark is given to a student for a particular course. And the UC-CSU Admissions Requirement Code, this code is not required like the other fields that we've discussed here, but the code represents the category of UC or CSU admissions requirements that a high school course has been determined to meet. And then finally, we have the Carnegie Units earned. This is also not required, but should be populated for students who have completed, again, approximately 120 hours of class in one subject over the course of 1 year. The Carnegie unit equation for a typical LEA is explained on this slide for your reference. And that is the student course section completion file type. Let's move on to discussing the Student Career Technical Education, or SCTE file type. LEAs must submit information on CTE pathways that students have completed during the academic year. Students who have completed a CTE pathway during the academic year are included in the SCTE file. If a student has completed more than one pathway during the reporting year, a record is included for each completed pathway. CTE participants who are non-completers are not in the SCTE file submission, as the data collected for course sections and student course sections includes the information needed to identify CTE participants. The SCTE file is only required for CTE completers. The SCTE file provides us with the CTE completer information, identifying students who have completed a minimum of 300 hours in a state-approved CTE pathway. The SCTE file also indicates the pathways of participants and completers, as well as the completer's completion year. The SCTE is a relatively small file, but provides key data elements for the California School Dashboard and feeds into the post-secondary status submission. All right, let's define some terms here with the SCTE file. Starting with a CTE participant. So a CTE participant is a student who has completed the equivalent of a conventional 50-minute class taken 5 times per week for 180 school days or approximately 150 hours of instruction in a state-recognized CTE pathway. The CTE counts as a participant any student who has completed a CTE course. So that is the definition of a CTE participant. Now let's look at a CTE non-completer participant. CTE non-completer participant is a student who has completed a CTE course who may or may not be participating in a pathway, but does not meet the definition of a CTE completer. CTE non-completer participation is reported and determined through course section completion and student course section completion files rather than SCTE files. And a CTE completer is identified locally and is a student who has completed a minimum of 300 hours in a state-approved CTE pathway and has successfully passed the capstone course in that sequence with a grade of C- or better. The CDE counts as a completer students the LEA has identified as a completer by populating the field 11.14 CTE pathway completion academic year in the SCTE file with the current academic year. CalPADS validates whether students who are identified as CTE pathway completers in the SCTE file have completed the capstone course in that pathway. All right, this slide provides a visual explanation of how CTE participants and pathway completers are reported in CalPADS. Let's begin with the CTE non-completer participants. The first step in reporting your CTE non-completer participants is to report the course section completion record for the CTE course, with state course codes in the 7,000 to 8,999 range. The course section completion record is tied to a staff member rather than to a student. So you must go on to submit the student course section completion associated with the CTE course in order to tie the student to that CTE course. If the student is a non-participant completer, do not submit an SCTE record for the student. SCTE records are only submitted for CTE completers. All right, let's now discuss reporting your CTE pathway completers. The first step in reporting your CTE pathway completers is to report the capstone course appropriate to the CTE pathway in the course section completion record with the appropriate state course code. Capstone courses are the final courses necessary to complete a CTE pathway. The course section completion record is again tied to a staff member rather than a student. So you must go on to submit the student course section completion record that is associated with the capstone course in order to tie your student to the course. The final step for reporting your CTE pathway completers is to submit the Student Career Technical Education or SCTE record for your completer student, reporting the CTE pathway code and pathway completion academic year ID, which must be populated with the current academic year for your completers. So this is a kind of a visual explanation of both reporting your CTE non-completer participants and your completers, and notably the key difference of submitting the SCTE file. The SCTE file is only submitted for your CTE pathway completers and is not submitted for your non-completer participants. A common problem in end of year one reporting is that CTE state course codes are mapped to the wrong pathway. CTE pathways and CTE state course codes should be mapped so that they align with the content of the curriculum. The valid code combinations document is vital when mapping your CTE courses, and the course group master combos tab, in particular when mapping CTE state course codes to pathways. In the course group master combinations tab, you are able to map course group state codes to CTE pathway codes. This tab will also help you to determine whether a course is a concentrator course or a capstone course. Within each CTE industry sector, there are several pathways. In each CTE pathway, there are state course codes for introduction, concentrator, and capstone courses. Screenshotted on this slide is the course group master combinations tab in the upper right-hand side. For the agriculture CTE industry sector, which includes CTE pathway codes of 100 and 999. We can see here, course group state code 7110 is an introduction course. It's an introduction to agricultural business. State course code 7111 is an intermediate course. It's an intermediate agricultural business, and that is a concentrator course. And 7112 is advanced agricultural business, and that is a capstone course. So that is the final course in the CTE pathway. If you are reporting a student completing a pathway, they must complete a capstone course this academic year, and this must be reflected in their student course section completion records. You are also able to identify CTE pathways by the industry sector in the CTE pathway industry sector tab, or screenshotted on the left-hand side of this slide. And then you are able to determine sub-pathways for each CTE pathway. The CTE pathway, CTE sub-pathway tab of the valid code combinations document. All right, this slide shows where in the student course section completion and student career technical education records that you populate or input CTE Completer data that we use the valid code combinations document in order to map. In the student course section completion record for your CTE Completer student, that is this record screenshotted on the left-hand side here, you want to ensure that you use a CRS state course code that represents the capstone course for the CTE pathway. In the example on screen, this is course group state code 7212, Advanced Graphic Design, Capstone. This is designated as a capstone course in the valid code combinations document, both by the inclusion of capstone in the course group state name and by the yes in the CTE capstone course indicator field here. Once the student course section completion record has been posted, you will go on to post the student career technical education record, and that is screenshotted towards the bottom middle of the slide here. In the student career technical education record, you will want to ensure that you populate the correct CTE pathway code, also found in the valid code combinations document. In this example, it is populated with CTE pathway code 111, which is Design, Visual, and Media Arts. You will then want to populate the CTE pathway completion year, which must be the current academic year. So this is a bit of an error here, including 2019 to 20. This must be populated with the current academic year. So this year it must be populated as 2022 to 2023 for the CTE pathway completion academic year. All right, this slide shows the fields or data elements that CalPADS uses to determine CTE non-completer participants. Student course section completion records, those are the records screenshotted on the left-hand side of the slide here, must use a state course code that identifies the course as a CTE introduction or concentrator course. This must be a code that designates a non-capstone CTE course. But we do not submit the student career technical education record for our non-completer participants. We will only submit student course section completion records, which use the appropriate CTE state course code. All right, and that concludes our discussion of the CTE course reporting. Let's move on to discuss the work-based learning, or WBLR file type. So LEAs must submit the work-based learning record in end of year 1 for students in grades 9 through 12 in order to measure their preparedness for college or career. This data feeds directly into the college and career indicator on the California School dashboard. There are 12 work-based learning programs or activities that LEAs should track and report to CalPADS in the work-based learning file. These are very specific and defined in the CalPADS code sets document, and we will cover the 12 program codes in a couple of slides. The work-based learning file uses the replacement processing method using the operational keys of academic year and school of attendance and is used for batch processing. All right, LEAs must submit work-based learning, or WBLR records, to CalPADS for all students in grades 9 through 12 who participate in an internship or other work-based learning program while enrolled at the LEA. This includes completion of any work-based learning for students enrolled at the LEA at any time during the reporting year. Work-based learning data is found in the local student information system and is gathered by a team of CTE, special education, and CalPADS coordinators. Though you will commonly find work-based learning data within CTE and special education, it is not exclusive to these two areas, and students can be in work-based learning programs with any measure of curriculum throughout your schools. Because of this, it is important to have a process in place for identifying and reporting work-based learning programs. LEA admins will need to assign the work-based learning edit, view, and extract roles to their account and other user accounts working with the work-based learning file. SELPAs will need to request the state to add the work-based learning extract role to their account. And information on the work-based learning file can be found in CalPADS flash number 184 and 229. We also have data population video specific to the work-based learning record and a page on the CalPADS user manual that is dedicated to this record as well. And if you downloaded the slide deck for this presentation, there are links to these resources in the notes section of this slide. All right, let's go ahead and look now at those work-based learning type codes. So field 21.09 is the work-based learning type code. This is a field in the work-based learning record, and it is a coded value representing the work-based learning that a student has completed during the academic year in grades 9 through 12. The codes are defined in the CalPADS code sets and represent internships, student-led enterprise, virtual or simulated work-based learning, registered and non-registered pre-apprenticeship programs, the Job Corps, the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, Youth Build, the California Conservation Corps, traditional work-based experience, and transitional classroom-based work exploration. LEA should report the work-based learning in the year that it was completed. A single student may have more than one work-based learning activity reported for the academic year. Report summer work-based learning for grades 9 through 11. However, do not include summer internships that occur after a student has graduated. The work-based learning code will dictate that other fields be populated. This is a screenshot of the work-based learning file with an explanation of the necessary fields in that file. The work-based learning file features student demographic and enrollment data for identification and verification, but the 7 fields highlighted are specific to the work-based learning record. We first have the work-based learning type code, that's field 21.09. This is a coded value representing the work-based learning that the student completed during the academic year, again in any grades 9 through 12. We then have the Internship ID, that's field 21.10. This is a unique identifier for any internship work-based learning activity. We have the work-based learning hours-external. This is the count of hours that the student spent outside of school in a work-based learning activity in the academic year reported. This field, the work-based learning hours-external, is only populated for work-based learning types 10 internship, 15 student-led enterprise, and 20 virtual or simulated work-based learning. While the hours are outside of the classroom, the work-based learning activity is tied to the internship, student-led enterprise, or simulated work-based learning. We then have the state course code, embedded work-based learning, field 21.12. State course code that the student completed in which the student-led enterprise or simulated work-based learning was embedded is populated here. So this again is only relevant for student-led enterprise and simulated work-based learning. The internship employer performance evaluation code is a coded value representing the student's performance in the internship as evaluated by their employment supervisor. We then have the internship certificated supervisor indicator, and this is an indication of whether the internship was part of a program supervised by a certificated staff member of the school, of the district, or of the county. A Y indicator would indicate that the internship was part of a program supervised by a certificated staff member of one of these entities, and an N would indicate that it was not. Finally, we have the Internship-LEA sponsored indicator. This is an indication of whether the school, the district, or the county played a direct role in securing the internship for the student. Y would indicate that the school, district, or county did play a direct role in securing the internship, and an N would indicate that it did not. So those are the work-based learning fields that we want to be mindful of while populating records in end of year one. Let's go ahead and cover this checklist here. So we've now completed our discussion of the file types involved in end of year one. And this slide contains the end of year one checklist, which shows the priority of the data that you will need to populate and report prior to looking at certification errors and reviewing reports. You will want to be familiar with reportable state course codes, which can be found in the CalPADS code sets and valid code combinations documents. These will be populated in course section completion, student course section completion, and student career technical education records and must be mapped. The content subcategory code is located in the course section files and provides information about the specific modes or subcategories of the course content area that is being taught. So, for example, if the course content area is foreign language, the content subcategory would be a specific language like Spanish, French, or Latin. If the course content area is visual arts, the content subcategory would be the specific visual art, whether drawing, ceramics, painting, or another art. The standards grade level range is an indication of whether the course is being taught to elementary grades K through 4, middle grades 5 through 8, or secondary grades 9 through 12, or not applicable. The content standards alignment code is a coded value representing the currency or recency of the standards that were used to develop the content of the course. The middle school core setting is an indication of whether or not a course in grades 5 through 8 is taught as part of the middle school course setting. For example, a 2-period block of math and science in grades 5 through 8 could be considered a middle school course setting. The AP or IB course code cross-reference is the 4-digit cross-reference to the actual AP or IB state course code for AP or IB courses that an LEA has mapped to a CTE state course code because that course is part of a CTE path. This is only necessary if applicable to a course or several courses at your LEA. After you have ensured that all required fields for courses are populated and up to date, you will want to move on to step 3 and ensure that your student information system vendor has translated credits earned into Carnegie Units. This may not be as relevant as when Carnegie Units were first introduced, but it could be helpful just to check with your student information system vendor to ensure that these calculations are being performed. You will then want to ensure that all of your college and career or CCI data is reported in the local student information system. This includes CTE Completer data, student leadership or military science course completions, students who have received the State Seal of Biliteracy or Golden State Seal, students who have completed college courses, and work-based learning types for grades 9 through 12 who participate in work-based learning programs. All of this data informs the college and career indicator on the California School Dashboard. All right, in the work-based learning file, type 10 programs or internship programs, you must populate the following. You must populate the Internship ID, the work-based learning hours-external, the employer performance evaluation code, the LEA sponsored indicator, and the certificated supervisor indicator. Those are all necessary for your work-based learning type 10 programs or your internship programs. Those internship use the work-based learning type 10 code. All right, and then type 15 or student-led enterprise programs reported in the work-based learning file must have work-based learning hours external and the state course code embedded work-based learning fields populated. So those are the two fields that are required For student-led enterprise programs or Type 15 work-based learning programs, they are, again, the work-based learning hours external and the state course code embedded work-based learning fields.